And as severe storms sweep across the valley, now is the time to seek shelter options. Our Keneisha Deas is live at Decatur City Hall, one of the designated storm shelters. Keneisha, what should people know?
That's right, Connor. As you can see and probably hear, it's starting to rain a little bit. It's picking up here in Decatur. And Decatur City Hall is actually one of the designated storm shelters in this area. According to city officials, it will open once we are under tornado watch. And of course, we will continue to monitor the status of storm conditions. People will hunker down to the basement of this city hall. The storm shelter will be manned by Decatur police, who will assist people who are deciding to shelter in place here. Anyone is welcome to come, including domesticated and service pet owners. However, there are some CDC guidelines that people need to follow.
Masks will be enforced and social distancing will be maintained as best as possible. It just depends on how many people will be here. Again, officers will be on site to make sure everything goes smoothly.
And also Decatur High School and Austin High School are designated storm shelters. And again, they will open once we're under tornado watch. We want to remind people that although right now it seems a little bit calm and quiet, we're expecting severe weather to pick up later on this evening. So definitely make your preparations, plan ahead of this severe storm that we're facing in the third round tonight, and continue to follow updates on air and online. Continue to follow Chief Meteorologist Jordan Dressman as well as meteorologist Emily Owen. Back to you all in the studio.